Joining me right now, back on the show, is Bellator welterweight title contender, Jon Fitch. What's going on, Jon?
What's up, man? How you doing?
Good, man. Let's kick it off right away. You're in the Welterweight Grand Prix. Let's talk about the brackets. You know, all the other first round fights have already happened. Douglas Lima submits Andrei Koreshkov. What did you think about that performance? What did you think about the game plan that he implemented on
I thought he
Koreshkov?
was pretty outstanding. Instead of getting to a stand-up war, especially being in the tournament, he took him down, used his grappling abilities, and submitted him. It was pretty great. I was pretty surprised.
What about MVP?
Good MVP.
Squeaking out that win.
Yeah, I know. He if he's not being pressed, he doesn't do any press. So like the first round, they're just kind of standing there looking at each other. But yeah, so he's definitely got some holes in his game, some things to exploit. He's still extremely explosive, powerful. So he's always got a puncher's chance or a flying knees chance.
Did Daly kind of expose him a little bit, in some aspects of his game? And Daly's not even a grappler, but he grappled.
But he was able to secure takedowns, and he got tired, I think, towards the end and lost some positions. But he definitely showed that his superior wrestler could definitely give MVP a lot of problems.
So do you see Lima kind of running through MVP? Do you see a huge advantage for Lima in that fight?
I think Lima's got a clear path for victory. I think he's got the ability to put him away quickly, but you still have somebody who's got an awkward style and powerful strikes that come from strange angles.
Yeah, I think that's a fun matchup, though, because of that stand-up aspect.
Mm-hmm. It'll be interesting to see how Lima deals with it, but I think he's experienced enough and well-rounded enough to handle it.
And the shocker of the tournament I believe, is the Neiman Marcus submitting Ed Ruth. Everybody thought Ed Ruth was going to beat Gracie. Or why did I say Lehman Marcus? Neiman Gracie. I thought everybody thought he was going to beat Gracie, take him down and punch a hole in his face, but that did not happen. Were you shocked?
No, I mean, I've worked out with Ed before, and I knew that the holes in his game were a few submission spots, and I always knew that Gracie had it's a small possibility to get the right position and then catch him in a way that he wasn't ready for. But Ed Ruth, in a couple of years, I don't think anybody's going to be able to beat him. He's just learns fast. He adapts fast. He's a hell of an athlete. I think he's going to be trouble for people in a couple of years.
Was it the case of a little too much too early for him?
No, I mean, maybe you need to take a loss to refocus. It's a tough sport if you're going to make the long way. I think early losses are better than than the losses later on.
Oh, definitely. Now let's talk about your fight. Your last fight was at Bellator 199. We spoke before that versus Paul Daly. People remember that fight more for Paul Daly talking during the fight than your performance, because you had a great performance in that fight. Mm-hmm. Does that kind of bother you in any way that people are focusing on him jabbering during the fight?
It's a unique thing. I mean, it's just funny. Like, it doesn't happen very often. He was the most frustrating part of it is he's the guy slowing down the progression of the fight. He's the one who's not fighting to get up. He's the one who's holding on to gloves. So the fact that was complaining about it, I don't know, it's ironic to me.
Yeah, you mentioned he was holding on to your gloves, and
you can see a few pictures where he's got firm grips on my gloves, and I can't get my hands free. And he's not turning to give his back away or turning to face me in any way. He's just kind of sitting there. He's clearly waiting for the referee to stand us up.
Does the referee need to be more attentive to fighters holding onto gloves, onto that aspect, since it does limit the activity on top?
He's not hooking into the gloves. He's just preoccupying the hands, which is good for not taking damage, but it stops the progression of the fight. You're not actually trying to get up or get away. You're just stopping the fight. I think they need, like what Pride used to do. They used to have yellow cards back in the day when guys weren't doing enough action. I think you should start giving yellow cards out. After a couple yellow cards, give a red card, start the guys neutral, but you give up part of your purse.
Yeah, I think if you take people's money, they're gonna start fighting a little bit harder.
Exactly. So I mean, and it goes both ways. Sometimes the guy on top's locked his hands and he's not trying to pass, he's not trying to punch or elbow. That gets slow. Sometimes that happens. Sometimes it's the guy on bottom closes his guard, holds onto the hands, is waiting for the referee to stand him up. Well, I mean, if you wanna stop the fight in order to gain a position, well, then you're gonna get hit with a yellow card.
Were you satisfied with that win, or did you almost wish that fight was 5 rounds?
That's a good thing. If it was like that, if it was the first round of the tournament, it would have been nicer to have a fifth round because he was starting to, physically break a little bit, and I think he would have kept making mistakes. Uh, and I think talking to my corner in between the third and fourth round would have got me away because I was looking for two specific finishes, and it would have taken him to either roll to his stomach or to roll to his back, and he just sat in the middle when was fighting hand control. So I think I got stuck on the two submissions that I had envisioned finishing the fight with. So having the coaches talk to me in between rounds probably could have pulled me out of that tunnel vision and start looking at something else next time I get in that position.
You're on a major resurgence the last couple of years while entering your 40s. What is the secret, man? Do you have a new diet, recovery methods, training system? What's going on? What have you changed in that last few years?
I think opportunity has helped a lot. Just staying consistent and being ready for the opportunities because I had to win the fights, that were in front of me over the past few years. But I've got a regular like lifting program. I think that helps keep me healthy. So I'm lifting all the time rather than just right before training camp or in training camp. I'm trying to make it more a part of my life to just get the lifts in. I got my weight rack is behind me. Um, Sticking to my diet instead of fluctuating up and down in weight like I kind of used to. I didn't get super fat, but I'd still put on an extra 15 pounds of fluff. Now I keep my diet clean year round. I've kept it pretty much the same since like 2016. Um, I get cheat meals, and I might take a break a week long here there, but like I'm pretty much always on my diet. So that's helped a lot. I think those two bases just keep your body ready to go.
Man, it has flown by since your last fight, almost a year. How have you kept yourself busy? What have you been doing, other than training?
Well, I wrote a book. It's out on Amazon, Failing Upward Death by Ego. It's available, yeah, on Amazon. I've been doing live streams every day on my YouTube channel. I have a Patreon where I do technique videos every week. I haven't had time to write any blogs recently, but I've got several up on my website. So I try to keep busy with different stuff, different projects. I have a podcast with Chris Tinkle called Fitch and Tinkle Smash Everything. We're gonna hopefully start uploading those episodes soon. We've been having technical difficulties, and well, he came out with another comedy album, so he's been working on that. So, and then I've been training for a fight, so everything takes twice as long as we think it is. But it should be out, sometime soon.
Writing a book, all those things that you're involved in outside the cage, does that keep you mentally sharp?
I think so. It keeps you from getting bored, because you can't be in the gym banging it out every day. You get a little bit stale doing that stuff. So, I switched things up for a little while and was just doing jiu-jitsu for a couple of months. And then, having these little side projects, stuff keep you occupied. It's, learning process with this stuff, but it's fun. And hopefully I can turn it into actual income later on.
Yeah, investing that time now is going to benefit definitely later on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I'm not putting full effort into a lot of these things. They're just, I've turned my hobbies into things that, I like doing all those things, but they're all things that I can monetize as well.
Yeah, I think a lot of young fighters can learn from that, start it now when you're in your 20s. So when you are in your late 30s or whenever you feel like you need to step away, you have something to go to.
Yeah, that's what I wish I would have done when I was in my 20s instead of playing video games all the time. I wasted a lot of time where I could have, take an hour a day and, you could read something, pick something up once a year and try to learn something about it, whatever it is, editing, writing, sales copy, anything you can find. Just play around with it, see if you can get good at it, see if you like doing it, see if you could do it, as a job. And it could be a side gig you make a little extra money from later.
Well, let's get into your upcoming fight for the title, Bellator 220 main event. You're challenging Rory MacDonald. It's part of the Grand Prix, but it's also for the title, which is, I love that aspect. Some of these tournaments they have going on, they don't have the champion in them. They don't have, I like Bellator, what they're doing with this. It's your second straight fight in San Jose. Must feel good to be fighting in your hometown, especially for the title.
It's pretty cool. Yeah, I gotta say it's a pretty big opportunity. I got to defend the title in Madison Square Garden. That was pretty cool. But get in a fight and this opportunity to win a world title in San Jose, it's pretty great.
Going back to the title being on the line every fight, does that make this tournament, this Grand Prix, more exciting for the viewers, you believe?
I think so. I think it makes it mean a little bit more. I think it definitely adds extra luster to it. It's not just a tournament where there's a title at the end. The title could get passed around several times in the tournament itself. So it's pretty cool.
And also, if the Grand Prix all of a sudden explodes and it doesn't continue, you still have a champion, right?
Yeah, it's true.
You said in another interview that Rory is not a world beater in any aspect. He's tough, he's very talented. What do you believe makes him such a special talent, since he is the title holder right now?
Well, he's pretty good at a lot of things. A lot of guys will just be good in one area or a couple areas. He's pretty good in a lot of things, but he's not somebody who would place top 10 in any one of those disciplines by itself. He's still very tough with all of them, and he's got a tough mindset. So he's going to keep coming forward. He's not the kind of guy who usually would mentally break down or shut down. Usually it's his body that gives out. So you've got to be ready for a blood and guts type of fight.
It seems like MacDonald's nose hasn't been the same since the Lawler fight. When you see a so-called weak spot in a fighter, as a fighter, do you have an obligation to target that area?
I mean, you're trying to hit a guy in the face anyways. It's not like you're really extra aiming for his nose. It's not that big of a target in the first place to be hitting. So there's a good chance that when you're throwing a punch at the face, you're aiming for the nose. But if you can damage somebody, you damage them. I'm not going to rely on thinking that his nose is the problem. But if in the fight it becomes a problem, then you pay attention to it.
Yeah, because you see a lot of fighters, in the past, during the fight, people are like, oh, he has terrible fight IQ. The guy's leg is hurt. Why is he not attacking the leg? You see that. The commentators are saying that. They're screaming it. And that's why I kind of asked you that. Is it most likely it's just during the fight, right? It's not like leading up to the fight you're thinking about that area.
No, because I think it's too narrow of a mindset. You've only got so much room in your head for game plan stuff, and you want to keep them kind of broad. That way you don't have too many trigger words in your head. Yeah, if you have 15 different things you're trying to think of for a fight, you're going to forget most of them. But if you can keep it simple to something like 3, maybe 4, but it's more broad and encompassing, then that's the way to go. But I think hit him in the nose is really focusing on that one little thing, and it's cutting off a lot of the other things you can think about.
You pose a lot of threats to Rory, but what is one intangible that you think separates you from him?
I think I got old man strength. I think it's setting in.
Well, you're lifting weights too, so that doesn't help.
Lifted weights too, yeah. Lifted weights, old man strength. I think mean doesn't age, I guess either though.
Definitely. All of the first round fights so far, they went to the judges or they were stopped in the championship rounds. Do you see this fight going into doing the same?
It's quite possible. I think the first 3 rounds could just be a sprint for both of us before we even get into our strides.
All right, let's get into the MMA landscape. You probably watch what's going on in the world of mixed martial arts. You got a promotion out in Asia, One Championship. What are your thoughts on that promotion and what they're doing for the sport?
It's good that there are all these promotions worldwide that are bringing up fighters and people are getting to watch MMA. I still am concerned with the format of how the promoters control the titles and the rankings. That it's a direct conflict of interest. It's not the way any other sport's done, and I'm always going to want that to change because it's going to bring the best case scenario for the fighters. But everybody's kind of doing their best, even though the circumstances are the way they are. Most promoters didn't create the situation we're in, but if they don't operate by the same methods, they're not going to succeed. But it's very interesting. Some of the fights they're putting on are really good. Really surprised with the Eddie Alvarez outcome. But switching organizations, fighting in a new country can definitely impact your performance.
They have been promoting this, not weight cutting. They're not weight cutting. The weight classes are different. They do hydration tests. What are your thoughts on their system of trying to rid the game of weight cutting?
I don't see how you can. I'm not as familiar with their system, but it always seems like people are going to try to be as light as they possibly can, and I don't know. It seems like it's always been a advantage to weigh lighter than you just walk around at for the fight or for weigh-ins for the fight. But I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how things go. I wonder if that had anything to do with Alvarez, his performance. Maybe not. Yeah. I like the way that we've been doing it here in the States with the morning weigh-ins. I think that works pretty well. If they wanted to take into account hydration that week, that wouldn't be a big problem, I don't think. But yeah, I think mostly with the weight cutting, the way the rest of the organizations do it is depth of fighter knowledge and knowing the right way to do it and not trying to cheat it. Like a lot of guys try to take a shortcut through the work of cutting the weight, and they're not doing the diet, they're not doing what they need to do, and then they try to lose all the weight, water weight, in a short period of time, and that's just not smart. It's not necessarily the weigh-in process that's the problem. It's the intelligence of the fighter.
To my knowledge, what One Championship does is if you are fighting at lightweight, you can weigh at 170 hydrated. And then you do 2 tests during fight week to test your hydration. If you pass those tests, then you can fight. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
Yeah. That doesn't seem like you're a lightweight, though. It seems like you're just a welterweight. You're just a welterweight who didn't cut weight.
All right. Well, you're telling the truth. So,
yeah, so
I don't disagree.
Yeah, you're a non-weight cutting welterweight or something. Put an asterisk by it. Yeah. But, I mean, maybe he's not used to guys who are actually fighting at welterweight.
Because that's what Demetrius Johnson said. Demetrius Johnson said in the interview that, he was fighting at 125, but now, he can be 135 hydrated. So a lot of the guys are much taller, longer, and it kind of gave him some trouble in his fight because I never seen him take damage like that in the UFC, but he got pretty beat up in the face before he submitted his fighter.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, it's like a fancy way of saying, no, we're not doing weigh-ins, or I don't know.
Nowadays, you got a lot of promotions doing TV deals. You got ESPN, right, jumping in, trying to take hold. They got a deal with UFC and also PFL. I think they signed a deal. Is that a good sign for the sport, for having two promotions at one broadcasting station?
I mean, it gets the product out there more, but it doesn't really improve the situation of the fighters. Uh, like the UFC is getting guaranteed money for their pay-per-views as if they were getting 500,000 views per pay-per-view, guaranteed. So it spells a problem for a lot of the fighters, because now your name doesn't matter. Like how many butts you put in the seat, how many tickets you sell, how many pay-per-views you sell doesn't matter because they're already guaranteed their money. So it's going to be interesting to see what it does to the fighters who have absolutely zero leverage now. Because even if they're popular and people like them and watch their fights and like to watch their fights, the UFC is already getting guaranteed money for the pay-per-view, so they don't really need to negotiate at all.
Yeah, I think it actually helps out the other major promotions to attract them, to attract the main fighters, to attract the best fighters of the world to leave and fight for their promotion.
But
with more pay, right?
The problem is though that the UFC makes so much more money than everybody else. Like they set the standard. So even if Bellator or PFL start offering more money for people to fight per fight, UFC can afford to outbid them. So they're not paying market value, but they can always outbid the number two. The psychological advantage that they have of the UFC title being the most coveted title for all fighters. So if you want to prove yourself as a fighter, as an MMA fighter, you have to fight for the UFC in order to attempt to try to capture their title.
Do you think that mind state or mindset is changing a little bit in the MMA community?
I don't think so. I mean, you ask any fighter what title he'd rather fight for. I mean, take anybody and you say, hey, you got to give up whatever you have right now, but your next fight is a title shot in the UFC. You take it. I don't think you're going to have anybody say no. I'm happy where I'm at.
Well, I think a lot of guys are happy where they're at. You got, like I said, in one championship, you got Eddie Alvarez over there, very happy. Dimitri Johnson is very happy, and they're former champions of the UFC. So, I don't know. I believe that the world is...
They're probably happy not having to deal with the UFC anymore, but I think they'd be happier in a free market system where they could earn their actual net value. What are people actually willing to pay for them, rather than second highest bidder.
Yeah, and I believe the sponsors too, being able to have sponsors hop on, and major sponsors. It makes a huge difference in your bank account for a lot of these fighters.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Now, recently, you got the presidential candidate, Andrew Yang. He came out and had some strong words for Dana White and the UFC. I wanted to get your thoughts on him and his criticism.
I think, he's in the right place, talking about what needs to happen, but it's just he's not educated on the union versus association. We can't have, it's the NBA has a players association. It's not the LA Lakers basketball union. It's a whole encompassing organization that covers everybody. It's covered under a sanctioned body, but we don't have sanctioned bodies. We just have the single promotion. So we can't do a union that would just, lock down their power. Plus, it would be impossible to do with the turnover rate for the UFC being, less than a year for non main card fighters and 2.25 years for main card fighters. It's like by the time you're in a position to maybe create the union, you're already out of the lineup.
Then with Yang, he's just trying to garner attention by sending out these tweets.
From labor, I think, yeah. He's trying to cozy up a little bit with labor, which isn't a bad idea.
Yeah, especially a presidential candidate.
Yeah, there's a lot of money, and even Trump was cozy with labor. Like even Republicans are a little bit of accepting of labor unions because of the blue collar vote.
That's true. I guess if you get some fighters on your side, they could promote you wherever city you go to, right? All right. One last thing before I let you go. What type of music are you into when when you're getting ready to punch people in the face, when you're getting ready to spar, go hard in the gym? What do you listen to? Who are the artists that you can recommend to your fans?
I flip around, depending on what mood I'm in. So I'll go from outlaw old school country like Johnny Cash and Willie Nelson, Merle Haggard, to like beach music and reggae. I jump around. I'll play some Post Malone sometimes, or what's his name, Russ. Russ, I listen to him sometimes. 90s R&B, Tom Petty. Like, I'm all over the place. Just kind of depends on what my mood is that day.
All right, sounds good. Well, April 27th, you get your shot. Bellator 220 main event, hometown San Jose, California. Thank you for your time, Jon, and good luck to you, sir.
All right, man. Good talking to you.